Welcome back. You are tuned into the special focus on Salam Media. My name is Zahid Jadwat, and we are together until 9 p.m. this evening. Indeed, we are going to be diving straight into the next segment of the show, where we're going to be discussing South Africa's visa policy for Palestinian passport holders. Now, did you know that Palestinians are required to apply for visas in order to visit South Africa, whereas this is not a requirement for Israeli passport holders? Well, that really is the case, and we're going to find out tonight what this means and why calls have been growing for this to change. Joining us in our virtual studio this evening is Nazim Adam, coordinator at the Palestine Solidarity Alliance. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Nazim, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Always good to be part of Salam Media's programming. Thanks for having me on.
Right, so very few people are actually aware of the fact that Palestinians are required to apply for visas in order to visit South Africa, whereas this is not a requirement for Israeli passport holders. And hopefully, with the campaign for South Africa to change this, this will change. But how do you feel about this? What do you make of it?
So you're quite right. People are surprised when we tell them that Palestinians have to apply for a passport. They have to wait a number of weeks before they get it. For a visa to enter South Africa, they wait a number of weeks. They have to pay a certain amount of money before they can enter, while Israelis have visa-free entry into South Africa. It's long-standing. We assume that the Israelis may have had that visa-free entry from the time of the old regime, from the days of apartheid, because we know that Israel had a very close relation with the apartheid government before 1994. Why people are surprised is because we know that the ANC government, the liberation movements in South Africa had a very close link with the Palestinian people. So people assume that one of the first things that a liberation movement would do is to open things up for the fellow colonial struggle comrades, but that has not happened. It's something that we are taking up. Not only us, there's a number of organizations that are involved, individuals, including from the diplomatic corps, the Palestinian embassy itself, all moving, and it's not a new campaign. So it's been going on for a long time, but we feel that now that the government needs to put its money where its mouth is and begin to support the people that supported us in our struggle against apartheid in the time when they needed it. And one of the ways that they can do this is by making travel to South Africa much easier for the Palestinian people. And that would open just a whole lot of opportunities which Palestinians may not have. But it's also good business from a trade point of view and so forth to provide visa-free travel, especially people that who have something to contribute and who find a natural allegiance with the South African people. And it's also part of a bigger solidarity campaign that we are working on, and it's for the rights of the Palestinians generally. That Palestinians need to be treated equally, just as the Israelis have visa-free travel, so should Palestinians. And the bigger issue also relates to other legislation. For example, we're also asking the government to adopt the Convention Against Apartheid, which helps free our own country, the United Nations Convention, and our country still has to adopt that resolution. So that is ironic, isn't it? That 30 years after liberation, after the release of Nelson Mandela, South Africa has to adopt the UN resolution against apartheid, which we think will be very significant in our struggle and solidarity with the Palestinian people.
Yes, indeed, that actually does come at quite a surprise, and one would wonder why the South African government, the post-apartheid South African government, has been slow. You mentioned Israel might have this visa-free access due to its relations with the apartheid government, apartheid South Africa. But why do you think the post-apartheid government has been slow to change this and actually make it possible for Palestinian passport holders to travel to the country visa free?
Right, it's an excellent question. It's the one that boggles the mind. We understand from a diplomatic point of view from a politically historical point of view, there shouldn't be any block for this. It's a question that we need to ask the government. We need to engage with the government around this. We know that there's a lot of work and lobbying happening from the side of the Israelis to block this kind of movement. And we need to find out where those blocks are coming from. So I think the question that we have to ask government, why this has not happened in all of this time is just unacceptable. So that is the campaign we're moving with. We're making a petition through the Media Review Network, and I can tell you there's dozens of people, well, there's hundreds of people that have signed on already, if not thousands, onto this petition across the globe. We are pushing this petition campaign as one of the avenues, and it is asking the question, why has government not moved on granting Palestinian people visa-free from South Africa? We can no longer play this duplicitous role as a government and say we are all Palestinian people and the struggle of the Palestinian people is like the struggle of the South African people, and at the same time you don't make any real tangible moves to alleviate their plight, to hold Israel accountable for crimes against humanity. So this is the reality that we're dealing with, and we need to begin to say to our government that they need to be more forthright and take the stand that many other countries took in the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, and to very bold decisions to boycott, divest, and sanction against apartheid.
So what does it tell us about South Africa's attitude toward the Palestinian struggle? I mean, on one hand, the government here claims to be in solidarity with Palestinians, but here we have Israeli passport holders being able to enter the country much more freely as compared to Palestinians. What does it tell us?
Well, obviously tells us there's not an even hand in the way they relate to Palestinians and the Israelis. And despite all the rhetoric, we need to begin to see our government putting some action to their support for the Palestinian people. We do know there's a genuine support from the African National Congress, from the Liberation Movement, from the progressive movements in this country for the Palestinian people. But also that there's a lot of pressures on government, particularly from Israel and its allies, the United States and the UK. But it's a storm that we're going to have to ride. We expected the rest of the world to ride that storm. We can expect no less from our own government. Let us learn from the experiences in the anti-apartheid movement, where governments and politicians and individuals, key players took a very strategic position against apartheid South Africa. And there's a huge hope from the Palestinian people, almost a desperate hope, to say to the South African government, stand up, take a lead, and make your voice heard in the struggle against Israeli apartheid.
Yes, indeed. And you've also mentioned that this is a campaign that has been ongoing for quite some time. It's not a new campaign. So have you been engaging with government, to rectify the situation?
So at the moment, we've met with the Palestinian embassy. So we are working on a strategic position to work diplomatically with them. And in the next few weeks, we hope to roll out a number of actions to try and engage with DIRCO, the Department of International Relations, probably the minister as well. There are sidebar discussions with individuals within the different departments, but the idea is now to have some official talks with them, some official talks with the ruling party as well, and other politicians, particularly parliamentarians, I think, can drive this process. So capacity-wise, solidarity movement always needs members. We need people on the ground, foot soldiers. I'm just putting out there, if anyone's interested, they can always write to us. We need people to help us engage with the different stakeholders. So the official links are going to be made in a few weeks as we build the petition towards that, and then hopefully, God willing, inshallah, by the end of this year, we want to see that Palestinians get travel to South Africa. But like I said, that hand is in the hands of the government. They have to make that decision. They have to be straightforward around religion. And we will try and hold governments accountable for positions they take. I heard you speak before, Zia, around how the ANC had lost so much traction and ground in local government elections. I think all these play a part. When governments stop being to people, they will start losing traction, and that's what we got to try and avoid and work closely with people to ensure that there are victories in every space.
And just a quick comment here from one of the Facebook viewers as well, Afzal Muhammad, who says the same ANC that rejected the Bantustan system in apartheid South Africa recognizes the same system in occupied Palestine. Hypocrites. Hypocrites, he says. Your response to this, might you want to pick up on this comment?
Of course, I think to compare South Africa's boundary to the occupied West Bank and Palestinian territories is a little unfair, because I think it's far worse. Because now you have a number of settlers with all the infrastructure, all the amenities settled in the occupied territories as well. So there's a usurping of Palestinian land on a daily basis. Tomorrow we have a program on the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre, and we'll show how through these days strategic acts of violence and terror, the Israelis are slowly and surely taking piece by piece, room by room in the street. It's actually room by room that they are occupying as they push Palestinians out of their homes and their flats and their farms on a daily basis, and the genocide continues. So yeah, it is hypocritical, I think, that we still have diplomatic relations with such an entity. I understand that would be ultimately our goal, is for the South African government to totally condemn Israel and to isolate it. But I also understand there's a real politics that is there, and we have to build enough support on the ground for our government to have that power and that authority to make that movement. I don't think we're there yet, so it is hypocritical, but we got to start pushing very hard for the total boycott and divestment and sanctioning of Israel. We don't want to be buying Israeli products. We don't want to also have Israelis operating in our country, coming into Africa, because Israeli action in Africa is to blind everyone to the hypocrisy of racism that they practice against black people and anyone that is not Jewish in Israel. So when they try and show friendship and hope for the African people, that is actually just a masquerade for the atrocities and the war crimes that they commit on the ground on a daily basis.
And just a final question before I let you go. We do have about 3 minutes remaining, so we're going to have to begin wrapping up. How confident are you that the campaign is going to be successful? Are you confident that the government, how likely do you think they are to now take action to rectify the situation?
Right. I am confident. I think it's a winner campaign. I think it's not something that can hurt government much to say to grant free travel to Palestinians. We wouldn't be the first country. There are many countries that give Palestinians visa-free travel. We do visa-free travel for many other countries as well. So it's not something that is impossible from a logistical, bureaucratic, and technical point of view. I think we will have that on political will, and we have to get all the players in government. And we know that our government is quite fractured at the moment. Our ruling party, even our presidency, there's great fracture in the leadership of our country. We pray that it can be resolved quickly for so many other reasons, even for South Africa to prosper. But for me, I think it's a real doable thing. It's just getting the political will. And I think it makes practical sense for the ANC to give this victory to the Palestinian people and to genuinely show their commitment and support for the cause.
Yes, indeed. And that's where we're going to have to leave it this evening. Thank you so much for your time, Naazim Adam, the coordinator at the Palestine Solidarity Alliance. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, right. And people can just follow us on Palestine SA .co.za and check us on Facebook. I have a good program tomorrow evening. People can sign in on that.
All right, thank you so much. That was Naazim Adam, coordinator at the Palestine Solidarity Alliance, the PSA, speaking to us about South Africa's policy towards Palestinians when it comes to the visa requirements, and in contrast to that of Israeli passport holders, where Israelis actually can visit the country visa-free. So this is something that's going to be interesting to watch. Of course, it is a campaign that is gaining momentum as well. And it's going to be interesting to watch how the government reacts to this. Of course, the campaign is growing louder, and we do hope that at some stage it does bear results, and we hope that Palestinians can also gain visa-free access to South Africa at some point. But that's where we're going to have to leave it for this evening, and indeed it is the final show, so that's the final wrap-up of the show for me. Next week there will not be another show because this is the end of the special focus for now, as I take a break, to reprioritize and actually focus on my schooling as well. It has been a real honor and a privilege to host the show for the last, what has it been, over a year, I think. And we've had some good discussions. I must say, we've had some pretty good, awesome discussions. We've analyzed quite a bit. I've learned a lot, very insightful discussions, I would say. And of course, it's been a great honor to host the show since December 2019, and it's not goodbye forever, of course, because it's just a temporary, pause in the show. Of course, I do hope to come back at some point and lift off from where we left it this evening. But of course, we do hope that the conversation continues off air. Important discussions that we've been having, and these are the issues that matter. And of course, it matters that we continue with these discussions, whether we have the radio platform or not. We must continue these discussions off air. We do have social media to do so, and it's going to be really amazing in the coming years to see how these very discussions which we had, how the what we deduced from these discussions, how it turns out. I'm going to be watching that with a keen eye, and I must say I've learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And so that's where we're going to have to leave it this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always, this evening, and thank you for tuning in since the beginning and the inception of the show. And thanks to the incredible team at Salam Media and the technical team this evening also for a great job, the graphics team, everyone at the station as well. Thank you so much for your encouragement, your support, and to the listeners as well, the viewers as well. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. But from myself, Zahid Jadwat, and the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.